Hey everyone, this is your girl Harmony here with another episode of Talk That, right? Speaking upon relationships and things like that. So, there's been a large request for us to discuss a little bit about polyamorous relationships. So, that's what we're going to be talking about today. So, first off, what is polyamory? What is a polyamorous relationship, and how does it differ from monogamy and a monogamous relationship? So, first, as we all know, a monogamous relationship is a relationship that is built between two people, right? Typically, when this is seen or visualized, right, shown on TV or media, this is between one male and one female. It can also be between the same sex couple, right? So one male and another male, or one female and another male. However, the way in which a polyamorous relationship differs is polyamorous relationship is built, or the foundation is set between multiple people, meaning more than two, right? And so you have maybe one male and multiple females, or vice versa, right? One female and multiple males. This looks very different for different group dynamics. Sometimes it's simply two couples coming together, right? And they share intimacy and love languages and things like that. You definitely want to be aware that a polyamorous relationship, there is no, set standard as there is a monogamous relationship. Polyamorous relationship can vary and differ in so many different ways. And so the gist of it that you want to understand is it's a relationship that involves, more than two people, right? So it's outside of your coupled shaped relationship, right? And so that's the first thing that we want to understand when it comes to polyamory and what it is. One of the things we also want to understand is, some of the terms that are used when it comes to polyamory, and what that looks like. So one of the things that we will be talking about today is mononormativity and sexual fields. Mononormativity being defined as, it's a word that's typically used by those in the polyamorous community, being defined as, the social norm that is, created or curated in terms of, the norm being that people should only be in a coupled shaped relationship, meaning there should only be two people in a relationship. What is the relationship if it expands outside of that? Is it, genuine love? Is there genuine trust, right? What is the value of the relationship then if it expands beyond those two people that are we are socialized to think should be in that relationship? So that's what mononormativity is, addressing that norm that there should only be two people inside of a relationship, that it should not expand outside of those two people, that's wrong, it is uncultured, and basically we aren't socialized to be in that type of relationship. So that's the overall breakdown of mononormativity. And so when it comes to sexual fields, this is an area in which that you can but you can find or go out and seek, right, for people who are within your desire or your attraction. And so when it comes to looking for these people in your different sexual fields, this is different for persons of a monogamous relationship and persons that belong to a polyamorous relationship. For instance, persons in a monogamous relationship, you can make the assumption, right, that there is a larger sexual field to search through as more people have been socialized and believe it to be normal to be in a monogamous relationship, right? So them and one other person. So you can go to a sports bar and you can make the assumption that someone there may be of your desire or attraction, whether that's the immediate physical look, right? Or maybe the fact that they're at a sports bar, so you assume that they associate or like sports in some way, right? And so that's one of the associations that you can make. And that's one sexual field in terms of a monogamous relationship. When it comes to a polyamorous relationship, this looks very different, right? So they can't go to a sports bar in your general area and make the assumption that there is, there's going to be a couple that's going to be suitable for them and their needs, right? And so there is a separate community or a very there is a separate community that is specifically for the people that are involved in a polyamorous relationship. And so this is pretty cool because they have their own little area, own little field in which they can curate relationships and build bigger dynamics, have people to discuss and talk with, to converse with about, relationship dynamics and what one person may be doing in their relationship and what that looks like and what they're doing in their own relationship. And so one of the things that I did learn is there is a community in San Diego that the polyamory people go to in terms of, exploring their different intimacy. They gather around, they talk about different dynamics about how things work in terms of, if you have a relationship where you have two married people in your relationship, do each of those people have the opportunity to explore outside of the, exclusive persons involved or labeled in that relationship? Or is it limited to just the exclusivity of the relationship, right? So can they go outside and explore, other persons and other people? Or is it, tight knit and it's no, we belong here in this circle, this community, this is, our pod, they would call it, right? When you have about 4 people in a relationship, they would refer to it as a pod. And so these are some of the things that, come about when it comes to polyamory. And so I just thought it was so interesting because so often we do see on social media, right, a large posting of people and their, heterosexuality or heteronormative relationships, and usually they're coupled relationship. However, I did come across a webpage on Instagram that showed different relationships in the polyamorous community, which I thought was pretty cool, right? Because people are becoming more open about it, willing to, teach others about it. There's a way to communicate with these people that belong to this exclusive community. And so I thought that was very interesting. And so it's something that's becoming more, known largely across, different countries and things like that. And so that's one of the reasons why I kind of took an interest in it, right? It's, how do people genuinely feel being involved in this relationship? Because it is so different from what we're used to hearing. So typically we hear about the heterosexual couples and relationships. That's what's on movies. That's what's heard about in music when we think about it. That's what we see very often in public. And so, to explore or to encounter anything differently is, it's out of the norm, right? And so that's something that I wanted to talk about today. And, what that looks like for some of us. So I went to social media and I took some comments and I asked the question of, would you consider being in a polyamorous relationship? If you are involved in a monogamous relationship, what are some of the benefits? Do you think you would be able to last the test of time when it comes to a polyamorous relationship? And so some of the comments that I received back, one of them was, no, like I just genuinely would not be able to last in a polyamorous relationship because of the jealousy that comes along with it. How do you love so many people, that are so close? Where is the intimacy, right? Does the relationship lack intimacy? That was one of the things that I read, and I thought that was a very good question, counter question to what I posed, in terms of the intimacy that comes along with being in a polyamorous relationship, what that looks like. And many monogamous couple relationship persons commented that, a monogamous relationship is, it's sacred, right? It's between one person and the other, whether that be persons of the same sex or, heterosexual. That's something that they did mention. And they did want to, they emphasized that it was a trust, right? There's a lot of trust that is instilled. And so if you allow someone to step outside of their relationship, you begin to add more people to the relationship, is the trust then still, existent? Is it true love, right? That was one of the biggest things. How do you love so many people at the same time, right? So there is some overlap between the concerns of persons of a monogamous relationship and those of the polyamorous who are commenting about polyamory made. And so I thought that was very interesting to read about and to see what people thought. And so that is definitely something that you want to consider, right, as we move forward, is that although one is more popularized than the other, there are so many different dynamic relationships that are out there. You have polygamous, right, that exist. I know in some African cultures, this is actually really popular when one male will have multiple wives, right? And so that's a little bit different from, your polyamory relationship. However, that does exist too. And so you definitely just want to consider the different relationships that are out there. And it's not just monogamous relationships that exist, right? But that's the question, because we're so used to learning about monogamy, because 9 out of 10 times we've grown up in a monogamous, household, if we had both parents around or step parents or whatever the case may be. Instinctually, that's what we know, that's what we're aware of. And so I think that was, just something I thought was very interesting, that there's so many different types of relationships to be involved in, but there's only one that's so popular amongst the people. This topic was important for me, or for other people to understand, and or at least to be able to explore with, just simply because we are socialized to understand heterosexuality on a very large plane, right? And so that's one of the things that we come across so very often. It's not often that we hear about polygamy or polyamorous relationships. And so I know for me, at least growing up, I didn't. And so I wanted to create a space, right, where you could hear a little bit about that, talk a little bit about that, here on Talk That, where we talk about relationships, and different things that come about in relationships, different aspects, different, issues, different, positive things as well. And so it is very important that we create a space to talk about these different things, or at least learn about them. I know we learned a few things today. We learned mononormativity, we learned about sexual filth, we learned just a little bit about polyamorous communities. And so I think it's, important so that we are aware, right? We don't become so complacent with, what has been socialized to be the norm, and we understand that, hey, there are things that are different outside of what I'm used to and what I know. And so this is a chance to grow, to learn, and now you can go out and do your own research and see what else there is out there. You can learn a little bit more about the different communities for polyamory, what the different, polyamorous relationships look like, how they're built, how they communicate, right? How they build foundations off of trust and honesty, because those are the only ways in which a relationship of that nature can exist. And so those are some of the reasons why I wanted to talk a little bit about this topic today, why I chose to talk about this topic of all the ones you all suggested. So thank you so much for tuning in, and I hope to see you all, or to listen with you all in on the next topic and suggestion. And again, leave your comments down below, and then we'll talk a little bit about things that I mentioned. If you have questions, please feel free to reach out to me. Again, this is your girl Harmony on Talk That, and we're talking relationships. Bye, y'all.